So excited and happy to present to you our very first ever Kenyan female author. She's an amazing author. We don't need to preface it with female, but you know that this is one of the major aspects and themes of this book club. We're all about women writers, but this woman writer is our very first Kenyan, and we're very, very excited to have her. And her name is Muthoni Wa Gichuru. Welcome, Muthoni. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I
And
am good.
I'm very,
I'm just cold.
I'm very happy to have the honor of being the first Kenyan to be invited to this book club. I don't take for granted. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm hoping to enjoy myself in the next few minutes.
Awesome. So thank you, Muthoni. So Muthoni, where you are, it's actually an hour ahead of us in Harare and Gauteng and Zambia. It's actually 8 p.m., right?
Yes, it is. In East Africa,
Okay.
it's 8 p.m. Jambo, East Africans.
Sawa. That's what I know to say in response to that. Sawa, sawa. Okay, so as is my custom, thank you. So, as is my custom, I love to start every book club with a quote from an African author. And today I'm going to use an African proverb that popped up on my feed. And I think it encapsulates the rich body of work that you have contributed to literature and to the hearts and minds of many Africans across the continent. And the proverb is this. It's a Ya proverb from Malawi, and it says, alone one cannot produce history. So I just love the fact that we've got another country represented on the book club. I think in terms of reflecting on what that means to us at Thando Channel, definitely that, it comes from everywhere. So we've got guys watching from Facebook and YouTube. We've got Lucas Wafula. Hello, guys, watching from Nairobi, Thando Channel, Hui. Thank you so much, Lucas, for joining us. Please tell your friends to come and watch.
Because my long-term editor.
Yes. Oh, wow. This is awesome. So please tell your friends and any writers to come and watch and listen, because this is going to be a good show. Anyone else who's watching, please don't forget to message us in the comments. We'll acknowledge you. Tell us where you're watching from. And if you have ever read anything by Muthoni Wa Gichuru, she has written a lot. So without further ado, let me introduce her to you officially. Muthoni Wa Gichuru is a Kenyan author, and her first published novel is Breaking the Silence. It was the first runner-up for the Jomo Kenyatta Foundation Literature Prize in 2011. The novella that followed, The Hidden Package, in 2016 won the second prize for the Burt Award for African Writing. Her debut play, The Land Along the River, was on the list of commended plays in the English as a second language category at the 25th International Radio Playwriting Competition, and that was also in 2016. In 2018, she was the overall winner of Burt Award for Africa Writing Kenya for her manuscript, The Carving. Muthoni is also a short story writer and was shortlisted for the Commonwealth Short Story Prize 2015 and longlisted in 2018. She has been published in Fresh Paint Volume 2, an anthology by AMKA, Kenya Moonscapes 2016, an anthology by African Writers Trust, Uganda, and The Wrong Patient and Other Stories from Africa 2018, an anthology by Africa Book Club, Kweli Journal 2019, and Wasafiri Literature Journal 2019. So a lot of those are online, and we'll share the links with you for you to actually go and check that. Hey, Rita from the UK, we love to see you and to have you with us every Wednesday. Recently, Muthoni was shortlisted for the Queen Mary Wasafiri Writing Prize in 2019 Life Writing category for The Perfect Handspring, which is where she'll be reading from tonight. And Muthoni was Africalia's Creativity is Life Grant Scholar 2020. In 2021, Muthoni was featured in an anthology, Our Stories, Ourselves, Narratives from Black Women in Africa by International Women Writers Guild. She is also the coordinator of AMKA Space for Women Writers Kenya and a board member of the Kendeka Prize for African Literature. So, I mean, if you want to hear the story and the scoop about writing and women writers in Kenya, this is the lady to speak to. So, Muthoni, over to you. Tell us how you started writing and what was the journey like to your first published work, which was Breaking the Silence. How did that come to birth and fruition?
So when I talk about writing, I have to go back to when I was in primary school, when my teacher, is called Mr. Gogi, put my composition on the notice board, and I thought I am good in this thing. But I continued writing short pieces all through high school and college. But the publishing industry in Kenya, it's very hard to get to be published. But when I got my first baby, my husband told me, "Why don't you write a full-length novel and maybe see whether our son, will get read the book." So I sat down and wrote. It was a story told to me by my sister-in-law, what comes to stay with me and look after me and the baby. And then I started the round of publishers. I went to major publishers in Kenya, but I would just get, this is a good story, but you're not doing anything of the sort at this time. Then in 2003, there was a competition by Macmillan, which was called Writers' Prize for Africa, which I entered. And surprisingly, I was shortlisted. So that kind of broke the ceiling for me. And that story was called I Refuse to Be a Statistic, was published by East African publishers, although it took quite a number of years for it to be made into print. Then in 2016, that is when that my world really just opened up. I met somebody who is called Lucas Wafula, who is here with us, and he told me he wanted to enter my story, one of my stories for the BAT Award for African Writing. And I said, I've tried a couple of times before, and I don't think I can write something that is worth that prize. But I told him I was writing a story for my children because I'm tired of buying books all the time. So I save money, let me write a story for them. They would read in the evening. And he asked me, why don't you give me the story? And then when I gave him the story, he said, wow, this is good. Let's work on it. Let's finish it. And I did. And I was shortlisted for the BAT Award and won the second prize. But then also in 2015, also, I want to say that that was the first time I ever wrote a short story that gained accolades, because I was shortlisted for the Commonwealth Short Story Prize. And I want to thank AMKA. AMKA Space for Women Writers is a forum that brings together women. And I used to attend the forum, and that is where I learned the craft of short story writing. So also in 2015, Story Moja Publishers had a call out for people to be sending 1,000 words story every day for them to, then people would pay to read the story, and the money would go to arts building libraries in Kenya. So in 2016, I got published 4 times, 3 books by Story Moja and 1 book by East African publishers. And then almost every year after that, I've had a book or a short story published. And I can say the journey has been awesome. It has opened up so many doors for me. I'm able to connect with people. I'm able to inspire people. I'm now the coordinator of that space, AMKA space for women writers, that gave me the skills to be able to write, to craft short stories, because I always think that writing a short story is harder than anything else that I've ever done. Then in 2019, I decided to do nonfiction, and I entered the Wasafiri, the Queen Mary Wasafiri Writing Prize with the perfect handspring. And again, I was shortlisted, which was very, very awesome for me. So I continue writing. It's now I'm working. I have to mention this, that I also started writing for very young children. I wrote some stories, some short books with the Longhorn publishers. And in 2018, I also got now the first prize, BAT Award for African Writing. Now what I'm working on, I've been working with an organization called NAMBU. NAMBU is an organization that works to create stories for very young, for very early readers. So there is an app that you can download, and then you can get stories. And so far, I have 9 stories with them. So that has been my journey, and I hope to continue. I'm now also working on a full-length adult novel, because what I have mostly written is young adult fiction. But I also want to try my hand at adult fiction.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I've read some of your short stories that are published online. Though you say you write for young adult fiction, I mean, it's really quite mature and solid stuff that's there. But I suppose just because we call it young adult fiction, it doesn't mean that there isn't depth, right? So yeah, very, very well done to you and for keeping writing. Just a quick question though. Do you ever think about maybe gathering some of these stories, like the 9 stories you have on the app, into an anthology for some of your longtime fans who have been following you since you kind of broke out as a writer in 2011?
I have a collection of short stories, because almost every year I enter the Commonwealth and many other short story prizes, and some I'm shortlisted, some I'm longlisted, and I've gathered those into a collection of short stories, which I hope I'm going to be able to publish in the future. Success is my problem, because now I I need to have time to focus on that short story, add the short story, that anthology, and add more stories. And I will try and have it published in the near future. I know Lucas is here and he's a publisher now, so I'm going to talk to him and maybe any other person that could help in publishing that anthology.
Yes, Lucas. So you heard it here first, and we're also looking at you, Lucas, because some of us would really enjoy having all of those stories in one place. I'm just going to acknowledge more people who have joined us. So we have Wanjiri Muthoni watching from Nairobi. Hi, Wanjira. Very nice of you to join us. Lucas tells us that Muthoni is an amazing writer, and I concur. I've read some of her short stories. Very amazing, very captivating. Cam watching us from Zimbabwe, and she says, "Wow, the very first guest from Kenya." I know, it's really excited. I'm so excited. And then we've got Adam Keita Mo watching from Israel. Welcome, Adam. If you've got a question for Muthoni, please don't hesitate. Drop it in the comments box, and we'll make time for her to answer that. And then we've got Phyllis Ngugi watching from Doha. Muthoni, you're an amazing writer. I personally have read your book, Breaking the Silence, Go, and More Grace. So this is actually the most like sort of Pan-African, like very wide reaching audience we have. Usually we get like clusters of people, like we'll get like either they're all from South Africa and Zimbabwe, but like we've got Nairobi, we've got Doha, we've got Israel, we've got Zim. Thank you so much. It must be because you're here, Muthoni. So thank you very much for attracting such amazing people. Oh, and then we got Winnie Njoki, Winnie from Nairobi. Welcome. So those are our guests tuning in. If you have a question for Muthoni, please share it with us in the comment box. Favored Angel, let us know where you are watching from. She says amazing and she blows a kiss to you. So we got the house is full and people are talking. The comment box is hot with comments. Thank you all for showing us the love. Yes. So now I just wanted to talk to you about the process of, applying for all of these competitions. Have you been surprised by the acclaim and the impact and sort of the response from the literary community to all your work? Because it's really been sustained and the literary community loves you. And it's not just locally, it's also internationally. What has that journey been like for you?
It's always a gamble to put your work out there and you received, and it's surprised when it's longlisted or shortlisted, especially when I'm trying something new. Recently, I entered a competition that was based on climate change, and the call out was climate change emerging 50 years from now. And I got an email that even if I was not shortlisted, that I was among the 200, I think 200, no, 50 stories read from what was submitted. And it's always amazing. It's me, like, oh, me, this girl from that's the village called Mata. Here I am. And it's been surprising and joyful for me. And it's amazing. It's amazing. Let me say that. So it's a joy to be accepted and to have my work acclaimed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is amazing. That's incredible. And what I do find incredible is that you just continue writing, you just continue producing. So one of the pieces that I read had images of you in your sweet potato garden in different kind of home settings and rural settings. And the story was kind of like reflections on COVID. What prompted that story? And what was, what was going through your mind as you wrote about it? Because, I mean, COVID is something that's still very real for all of us all over the world.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine anything more challenging than, telling that story to yourself and to us, to the rest of the world. What prompted those reflections and feelings of space that you shared in that story?
I wanted to, this is a moment in history, however terrible it is. It's a moment in history, and we need to curate those stories that are happening in this moment. In my generation, I hope that this never happens before. And then when you think about something, somehow the heavens conspire to make it happen, because then I saw a call out by Africalia. And I never heard of Africa before. I saw it in one of my WhatsApp groups, and then I say, let me try and do this short story. So I applied, I sent a proposal, which I've never done before. My proposal was accepted, and so I set out to write. And I've always also been fascinated by what we call the less or the kanga in East Africa and the message that it passes. So it gave me a chance to not only create history, but also to write about this amazing piece of fabric that we wear in East Africa. So that's what prompted me to write. I always remember my mother would have problems. I'm going to tie my lesson tighter. And it was also a memory of her and how she used to be a very good storyteller.
Yeah, definitely. I think what you captured so powerfully for me is that feeling that we've all had during the pandemic, where time is moving slowly but fast at the same time.
Yeah.
And the kind of trying to hold your space in the midst of so much anxiety and worry. But I just also loved the way it was set against a very East African background. Like you go to a lot of lengths to describe the surroundings and the environment. And I think that's really, really amazing. And that is, it's wonderful that you captured and curated this moment in time from an African perspective, so that we contribute to the history, contribute to the narrative. So I really, really actually enjoyed that and found it was very brave, because the last year people started joking and almost describing the seesaw or the swing of emotions you go through during the pandemic as the corona coaster. And you would go through all of those emotions even in one day or in 24 hours. So it was very, very, so a very, very interesting piece of writing there. We've got some more comments, so much love in the comments. Lucas, again, when African writers and literary enthusiasts come together, something good happens. This gathering is it. Definitely. We've got Tatenda Tom, who is very inspired by your body of work and writing. Thank you, Tatenda. Then we've got Kanunu Jarush. I really hope I haven't butchered your name. Please forgive. And she says, my son loves you, so do I. Keep up the good work. And then we've got Joseph Nirango Toya. Muthoni's ability to write so naturally makes the action and characters real. The sky is not the limit for her, following from Kitui, Kenya. I agree with that. And one of the stories actually that reminds me, or that, I really felt like that about was The Unraveling. That was so real to me, and it was so relatable, and it was so entertaining at the same time, and it really pulled me along with the emotions in that story. I was really, really quite captivated, and that's a fiction story, correct?
Yes, it is. It is a fiction story. Yes.
Yeah. So what was going through your mind as you wrote that is very vivid. It's really it's got suspense. It's got you want to know what happens next, but you're also talking about very real issues that women face, societally, culturally, relationally, and you do it boldly without apology. But you also do it in a very literary way. So I would imagine that, men, women, people of different ages are quite taken in by that story. So what were you thinking about, and what was the inspiration for that?
The story of Unraveled is my mother was always very strong about social justice for women. I thought I have had a lot of cases where women, even when it is not their fault. And I said to write this to draw attention that sometimes it is not the woman who has a problem. And perhaps we misjudge people and we blame them, because even in Kikuyu, we say there is no man who is impotent. But it is because it used to be covered up by the relatives and the friends. So that's what I thought, to write a story that would give a different perspective, that would open up people's minds, make them more understanding of the issue of being barren. Basically, that's what. And about the vividness, I love the setting of the barrenness in the desert, and I thought maybe if that it was almost like what it mirrored the barrenness of the desert, mirrored that was barren, not just in terms of that they didn't have children, but that they could not come together to work on their marriage just because They thought having a child is what constitutes a marriage, and I thought I was hoping for more understanding of women and men who cannot get children.
Yeah, well, definitely there was a lot. I mean, there was just a lot in that story for me, because there was the aspects of, what women do to each other, in terms of perpetuating, that societal value that covers up for the men. There was also, I think, a fun, cheeky element in terms of how, a different cohort of women kind of push back. So the joke about, the man who comes to deliver the milk doesn't leave it at the door; he comes inside the house. And you unpack that thread for us in a really fun way, in the story. But it's a story about, yes, the barrenness. There's the journey through the desert. There is the issue of love and coming back to oneself, or finding home outside of your role as a wife or a mother. And then I think that there was something very contemporary for young adult women, in that book, in terms of, well, you can rewrite the story, you can flip the script. And, I just found that journey very interesting, coming back home to oneself, and tracing that through echoes of things you promised yourself you would never allow yourself to be a part of. But forgiving yourself when you do find yourself in that place, and finding the way back. So there was a lot that you shared in that story so skillfully. And this is, I think, the thing that I makes me amazed by you, and by the way that you write so often, is that it was short. It was a short story. It was to the point, and I'm like, but you said so much. I mean, I would have written a book, to things. So, like, very, very interesting. And the thing is, you write both novels and stories, and then you also write children's books. And you've done a lot in terms of children's literature, African children's literature. And you have really hit the mark across all of those different formats, different lengths, different genres, different audiences. How do you move seamlessly between them? And now also exploring nonfiction. How do you move across all of those?
I always believe that if you get so comfortable in one thing, you become stale in it. So I always want to challenge myself to try something new. In 2016, I actually tried a play and was longlisted for I think it's called radio play, BBC radio play. So all those, and because I am not going to be, I don't do two things at the same time. Most of the time I try to focus on, if it's a short story, I'm focusing on that short story. If it is a novel, I focus on that novel. But the thing is also, I work with the people. I work with Lucas, I work with Joseph Dirango, I work with the other people who are in my writing circle. We critique each other's work. So when I have missed out, else is going to spot and tell me, no, this is not what you should have written. Even before I take something to the publisher or I enter a certain prize, I'll have so many people who would have looked at the work. That way, I do not, I find that I'm able to write for children, write for short stories for adults, and write plays. The only thing I've not tried doing is writing poetry. I love poetry, but I don't know, I'm still learning. But the thing is, I challenge myself. I try to challenge myself to do different things, do something new, do something that I've not done before. And that keeps me feeling alive rather than just comfortable. Because sometimes you can get comfortable and say, I'm a young adult fiction writer, and that's it, and become comfortable in it. I don't want to. in Kikuyu, for those who can try to translate, is that when you stay in a place for so long, you get lice as in L-I. So you have to keep on moving. And then it's also very important because I want to capture our readers when they are very young. And it is the same readers who are going to read me as young adults and going to read me as adults. So I want to get them quite early because I know how reading is important to young children. I read when I was a very young. I started reading in Kikuyu, in Swahili, in English, and it has helped me and opened my mind. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Reading, definitely. Reading is, one of my favorite things. I feel like I've been reading for as long as I've been alive. Like when I was little, one of the very first places my sisters and my parents took me to was the local library. And it just got into my blood, and I've never actually been able to walk away from that. It's the only reason I would ever come online is to talk about books. So yeah, I thank you for continuing that culture and for telling stories in our local languages, so that people can also fall in love with their identities and their cultures. Because I can't think of a more beautiful way to fall in love with the culture than to read books in that culture and in that language. So very, very, thank you very, very much for that. So we're coming towards the end of the show, and I've asked for you to prepare a reading. But before we get to the reading, I have one last question for you. So you do a lot of work now with other women writers, and in your own practice, you rely on a supportive community of editors and other artists. Tell me, from a woman's perspective and an African woman's perspective, how important is it for women to be a part of those collectives, to participate in those spaces, and to add their voice to the publishing narrative on the continent?
Okay, I'll say that traditionally women were the storytellers. If you ask many people, they'll tell you that my grandmother used to tell me stories, my grandmother, my mother used to tell me stories. And why should we not continue with that tradition? And in they passed on the values of the community to the children. They passed on the folklore of the community to generations to come. So I think it is very important for women to tell stories. And one can only tell their own story if a man tells a woman's story. They will try, but it will not be as real as when a woman tells their own story. And stories, and we need our voices to be heard. Call a woman Mutumia, which means one who keeps quiet. But why should we keep quiet? We have a voice, we need to speak. And through writing, we are raising our voices to the issues that affect us. And we are trying to bring everyone on board, both men and women, so that justice and the rights of women are upheld. So I think it's very important that women write and write more.
Powerful, powerful. I love that. I love that. Yeah, why must we be the ones who remain silent? And it's part of our heritage in terms of our identity as African women. I love that. I love that so much. Thank you so much. You've made me think about that in a different way. So we have come towards the end of our time, and it's really been special for me having you on this show. I just cannot stress or overemphasize how excited this makes me. I love the country Kenya. I love the culture. I love it every time I go there. It's always such an amazing experience for me. Kenya is one of my favorite places in East Africa, and I just love, love, love it. And so this has meant something really, really special to me to have you, on the show. And because your body of work is so rich and diverse. And I just want to also thank everyone who's tuned in. We've got Duncan Mutinda tuned in, says, "This is beautiful. You're a great writer. Keep soaring." I agree with that. Lucas, thank you. For your beautiful comments. Rita, thank you. It is important. We have been silenced too long, Rita says, in response to what you shared. This platform is amazing to get a voice for women. Thank you, Rita. That is what we hope and pray for every time we do this. And Wanjira, thank you. Thank you for your wonderful comments and your compliments. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. It's been such a special time spending this with you, Muthoni, and with all your fans and with our audience for the book club lovers. So as we wrap up, please take it away and share with us your reading for this evening.
So I'm going to read from The Perfect Heartspring, which is, as I was telling you earlier before the program, is part of what I hope will be my memoir. And it is, I'm going to read the first 4 paragraphs and the last. I did share the link to a few people so that they can follow, and you can always read the whole story later. We don't have time to read all of it. So yeah, if you see me turning, it is because I'm reading from another computer. So please forgive me. So The Perfect Heartspring by Muthoni Wa Gichuru. I was in standard 6, 12 years old, as thin as an acacia sapling and just as laugh. I joined the queue of bloomer-clad girls and waited my turn. The test for making it to a physical education team would be a perfect heartspring. Hearts up in the air, land headfirst and start on your hearts with your feet up in the air. Spring off the ground and land on your feet. I practiced every evening after school. While walking home, I'd give my friend Nyangi my school bag and fly into the air. I was not sure how to execute this, but I had to try. A trip from my village to Nanyuki, my hometown, would be my reward. 15 girls went before me, and only 6 managed the perfect heartspring. Hearts together on the ground, feet together while hitting the ground. "It's your turn now," the PE teacher, Mr. Mangi, said. I could feel the coldness of sweat in my armpits. My palms were damp. I rubbed them on my bloomer. Anxiety dried the saliva in my mouth as I took a short run, and then there I was, jump in the air, hearts on the ground, somersault, and bring feet together on the ground. I knew it before I touched the ground. Though my left foot had refused to obey my mind and touched down a few seconds too late. I was out of the Tegedi primary school PE team. Why then did I continue to practice the heartspring? Long after the team had gone to Nanyuki town to compete and had come back, long after the hard and ball games were over and the end of term was drawing close, I was in class. I would watch the big clock on the teacher's desk as the minutes crawled on, waiting for break time. At night, I dreamt I was in the field, longing to the crowd, hearts and feet in perfect symmetry, then landing smoothly. Every break time would find me at a spot I had selected below our classroom. I had taken to wearing a bloomer inside my school tunic. I would tuck the dress inside the bloomer and off I'll be on a short run, then jump. Nyangi initially practiced with me, but she soon got tired and would watch me as I practiced. Eventually, my persistence, like all persistence, paid off. I made it. The perfect heartspring. My heart plowed the ground while my feet flew into the air in tandem, and I got down smoothly, my feet hitting the ground at the same time. I jumped up then and did a few somersaults, a few cartwheels, legs slicing through the air. My quiet mind could not articulate what it is that I had achieved. 15 years later, I would witness a grown woman do a heartspring and see myself up in the air. Feel again the springiness of the grass below our classroom. Smell the earthy smell of trapped pond glass as my head hung down. It would be as if I was again my 12-year-old self. Then this is the last paragraph of the story. Before I left Kitui to work in Embu and later in Nairobi, I worked as a volunteer in a community library. I was visiting with a woman's self-help group, and after telling them about the library and the services we were offering, they invited me to watch a game of football. The women aged 20 and above had raised money to build a kiln where they made and burnt clay pots for sale at the Kitui market. They divided themselves into two groups and they kicked the ball in the field with many of the football rules disregarded. Then one of the team members managed to outmaneuver her opponent and shot the ball past the goalkeeper. Her teammates broke into traditional Kamba dance, Kilomi, shaking their shoulders and stamping their feet. The scorer, a woman who looked to be in her late 20s, ran a few paces, landed the crowd's head first, pivoted in the air, her brightly colored kanga, and flying in the wind like a swarm of butterflies. She landed on her feet in a perfect handspring. I was taken back to my 12-year-old self and my perfect handspring. I realized that all that women ask for in the world is to be let to exist, to live, and they will thrive. That's my reading from The Perfect Handspring.
Awesome. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. And it's about so much more than the perfect handspring, and such a lovely way of reminding us all that as women. So thank you very much for that gift to us. It has been a special, special time with you. And, everybody has really, really enjoyed it. When Jira Muthoni says, wow, Muthoni, you read and write really well, I agree with that. I could hear and see, and smell the grass and see the pictures and the images. And it took me back to when I was in primary school as well. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. So without further ado, we have had our last session of the book club for July. But we're back here every Wednesday at 7 p.m. talking to another fabulous female African author. So it has been amazing spending this time with you, Muthoni Wa Gichuru, and thank you everybody who joined us. We look forward to spending time with you again next week, Wednesday, with our next African female author. And Muthoni, keep writing. And Lucas, I'm waiting for the anthology. Let me know when it's done. So thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone, and see you next week.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much,
Bye.
everyone, for the support and the love. I enjoyed it. And thank you, Selina, for having me. I've enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Awesome. Bye.